Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. I'm Chris, joined today with Dave, who's very kindly helped to jump on with me for this review today. You actually saw this last night. My memory might be a little hazy on this movie. I saw it last week, and I thought it was a fantastic movie, but I've seen a lot of movies since then, so hopefully I can remember this movie. It's not quite as fresh in my mind as some other reviews that we've done in the past. People might be thinking, why is there no George? Why is there no Tate? Well, in case you didn't know, Tate is in the high mountains of Austria right now, in some kind of log cabin somewhere, hopefully not going like Jack Torrance from The Shining. And George's internet has pretty much been down for like 2 weeks. So hopefully once his internet comes back on, we can get on another movie review at some point. But thank you very much, Dave, for jumping on this one. And I know that this has been a movie that both you and myself were looking forward to for a very long time. And I'll get your history on like the Spider-Man character and everything like that in a minute. But this is our review for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is Sony's latest standalone computer animated superhero movie, directed by three people, one of which guy I can't pronounce his surname. So it's directed by Bob, Peter, and Rodney. And you can do a quick Wikipedia search if you want to find who they are. And it's written by Phil Lord and Rodney Rothman as well. So, yeah, I don't even know how we're going to start this thing. We'll start with a spoiler-free section, and then we'll move into spoilers later. And I really do urge everyone to go and see this movie. The spoiler section is going to be very, very hard to talk about because I almost don't want to give anything away by it. I'd probably seen one trailer for this thing before it came out because I wanted to go in completely fresh and have everything a surprise. And boy, were there a lot of surprises in this movie. So I guess I'll pass over to you now, sort of your history of the Spider-Man character and trailers for this movie and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been here since my first incarnation of Spider-Man was the old TV movies, which were just crazy bad. So it's come from there, and I've been there through all the Spider-Man history. I've loved Spider-Man for a long time. He was one of my favorite characters when I grew up. So I enjoyed the Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire films, some of them, and bits, and then enjoyed parts of the Garfield ones, kind of, and then I've really enjoyed the new incarnation as well in Tom Holland. So yeah, this came out of. You knew it was coming. I'd seen they were doing an animated one, like, all right, they're doing another Spider-Man. And then you start to see some of the trailer that was coming out, the animation style that was coming out. I was like, oh, okay, I am actually quite interested.
Yeah, right.
It's the first thing I've seen that's probably looks more like a comic book on screen than anything that's been put out there before. It really does just jump out. And yeah, I couldn't wait to see this movie. I finally got to see it last night and was absolutely blown away by it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is probably, and I'm not just saying this like I'm not blowing like hot air up its ass or anything like that. This is one of the most unique movies I've ever seen, not just in terms of animation, but just in films in general. And you're absolutely right. It does feel like a living comic book has come to life on the big screen. And I've got to comment, and we'll talk about the animation style because I think that deserves its own section later in the review. But the animation team they have behind this has done absolutely incredible work. And in terms of like the world that we live in now, with so many animated films coming out every year, you've got the likes of Disney and Pixar and DreamWorks, Illumination and everything like that. It's very easy to get bogged down with animation and it kind of hits a plateau. I think this has raised the bar for animation, and it certainly showed me a lot of stuff that I haven't seen in an animated film before. But as I said, we'll talk much about that later. Spider-Man for me for a long time growing up, Batman's always been my favorite. He's always been my favorite superhero. But in terms of the Marvel world, Spider-Man was absolutely always my favorite. I absolutely adored the 90s animated kids show that came out, yes. And I still watch that on occasion. But the big thing for me was the Sam Raimi Trilogy. It came out just at the right age for me. What was the first one? 2002, I think the first one came out, didn't it? So I was about 9 years old when that came out. I couldn't see it at the cinema, unfortunately, because it was like the whole 12 debacle. But I did see Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, and you know, I still like Spider-Man 3, but those, you know, for the longest time, Spider-Man was my favorite hero. I had the PlayStation games and everything like that. But for me, none of the films have quite come to that caliber of at least the first two Sam Raimi films. I know that a lot of people hate the third one, quite rightly so, but I still have some enjoyment with it. And for me, the characters kind of dropped off a little bit. And there were moments of this movie, I'm not even ashamed to admit this, there's a moment where you've got Peter Parker on screen, like the original, like, the main prolific Spider-Man. And you're seeing him swinging around, you see him doing like all these Spider-Man things, and he's truly heroic. And I was getting a bit misty-eyed because it took me back to how I had that experience with that character. It almost felt like I was rediscovering the character with this movie. And I mean, it's not just Peter Parker in this movie. I mean, the main character in this movie is Miles Morales, who is I mean, there are so many, as you can see from this movie, all you need to do is take a look at the poster of this movie. There are so many different incarnations of Spider-Man throughout the ages and in the greater Spider-Man lore. But this is kind of Miles Morales' big cinematic debut. I remember when they said they were creating a new Spider-Man and Miles Morales was going to be the new protagonist. I remember it getting a lot of backlash from fans. I think it's because Peter Parker, the name, is such a household name in terms of comic books and the superhero world. You'd say like Batman, or Batman's Bruce Wayne, despite the fact there have been many other Batmen after him. Yeah. And I think that just, it's exactly the same with Peter Parker as well. So, I mean, I know some of the characters I knew of Miles Morales. I don't know many of the main, you know, intricacies of the comic books, everything like that. I know the main core stories, like, you know, the death of Gwen Stacy and Dr. Octopus marrying Aunt May in a very, very strange story arc. But I've never actually read any of the comic books. So very much for me, this was my introduction into the character of Miles Morales. And I think the movie did an incredible job with his character, making him still like the very likable and an underdog in a different way to Peter Parker. Peter Parker's very much like the geek at school who can't get a girlfriend or anything like that. This guy is very popular, but he just feels out of place. And I thought that was a nice shift, and it made the character feel different, yet having a lot of the similar qualities to what we expect from a Spider-Man character.
I think you're exactly right. The character on the outside of his peer group, that is Spider-Man. Spider-Man should always be an outsider. He should never be someone who's full in the inside. Peter Parker doesn't work as a cool kid. He should never be that. And Miles Morales, he came into a point where I remember when the Sam Raimi films were done and they decided that they were going to reboot, there's a big internet thing to get Donald Glover to play Miles Morales in the next movie, and there was a big uproar for that to happen, and never did. And I know him himself was chasing that to happen. So Miles Morales has never been a character I've looked into much more than that. I've seen some of the comics, you know, you're in stores, you see some of the comic covers, but I've never looked further into it. But yeah, he should always be an outsider, and I think they played that really well, especially because he wasn't like he was an outsider in his spoiler, just the story. He's moved from one school to, he seems to have moved to a scientific sort of school, somewhere really highbrow. And that's where he starts to be the outsider. So I think that's a nice switch that he was you see him go from this popular guy walking through his old streets, gets this new school, and he's just like a little unknown. And then it was really well played.
Yeah, and I love that about it as well. And as I said, it is those similar qualities to the character, but they're told in a very different way. Some of my favorite stuff from the trailers, and I knew I was going to love these characters when we got into the movie, was the family dynamic, especially between him and his dad. There's that great moment that's in the trailer where his dad brings him to school in the cop car, and he's over the intercom and he's like, "Tell me you love me. Say I love you, Dad. Say it." Which is a horrible, mean thing to do, but I'm sure that many dads do it, which is great. And another thing as well, like with such a big ensemble cast and the plot being, you know, what it is, and I guess I should, for people that don't know or are curious, I should say what the plot is. It's got Miles Morales becomes the Spider-Man of his reality and crosses paths with the counterparts from other dimensions to stop a threat to all reality. And you see the trailer, and there are so many. You've got Spider-Man Noir. You've got this very much a Looney Tunes Porky Pig kind of character with Spider-Ham. You've got a sort of anime Japanese one. You've got Spider-Gwen. Just an absolute wealth of Spider-Man characters, or characters in general. And I was very much worried that the focus would be taken from Miles Morales, or it would get lost in the minutiae of all these characters. But I'm very pleased to say that it doesn't. I think at the focus, you've got Miles Morales and what is it, Peter B. Parker, is it?
Peter B. Parker. Yeah.
I would say that those are the main two. And there's some characters that get more attention than others, but I think that everyone gets given the right amount of screen time. They focus on the characters they need to. Each character has a part to play. And as I was watching the movie and I was picking up on these similarities as I was watching it, I didn't know much about who directed it or who had written the film or anything like that until the credits hit, but I was getting a lot of the Lego movie vibes from the movie, not just in terms of the animation and it really pushing that, pushing the boat out for the animation and really giving me some new unique animation that I hadn't seen before. But in terms of the writing, the way that the story unfolded, even kind of the main plot of the movie, and that sense of all this, like these group of characters coming together to achieve this goal. I did get very much Lego movie vibes from it. And then as the credits went up, I saw that Phil Lord and Chris Miller had produced the movie with Phil Lord writing it. I was like, oh, that makes sense. And that probably explains why I like it so much.
Yeah, even the jokes as they played, a lot of the to camera, breaking the fourth wall jokes, you kind of got that complete feel of the Lego movie. It really, you absolutely nailed it with it. It felt exactly like that by the humor style. You're like, oh, okay, I'm familiar with this, which was actually a nice feeling because the Lego movie was so good. It kind of brought you in. It was a really nice, like an old friend, but bring you into this kind of different area, different universe. But yeah, you felt the humor was something that you already knew.
And even some of the characters, their personality types and their function in the movie and their role in the movie. I'm not going to like compare them all, but for example, you've got Miles Morales, who's sort of like the everyman, who's this underdog trying to get to this great status of all the other characters, just like Emmett's character from the Lego movie, where he's very much the underdog and he's surrounded by master builders and he's trying to become on par with them. You've got the Spider-Gwen and Wildstar comparison of the awesome heroine action lead character. And then you've got the likes of Spider-Man Noir, which is very much like Batman, voiced brilliantly by Nicolas Cage as well. I mean, I didn't think he would do better than Big Daddy in the Kick-Ass movies, but it was so great to hear him again. And he absolutely stole the show for me.
It was very much underutilized, which was a shame because I thought his character stood out an absolute mile every time he talked on screen.
Yeah,
and I mean we're going to talk about it in a bit, but the animation style of him, he was kept in black and white as well. They didn't colorize him because there's a scene that you'll see if you go and he's playing with the Rubik's cube, but he's just trying to guess what the colors are. He's asking one of the characters when he finds it, "Is this purple?" It's like no, because he can't see what it is. It's absolutely so well played.
And there's a lot of jokes like that are very subtle as well, or sight gags in the background and everything like that. And those are always my favorite kind of movies and comedies or anything, whatever genre you want to attach to it. I think it's if a writer can do that and they don't have to draw attention to it, I think that's fascinating when they do that. But let's talk about the animation now, because we said we were going to. This is without a doubt, as I said, this is really, pushed the envelope in terms of animation for me in films. It's this very unique style where inherently it is computer animated, but I know they got a lot of line work over it and 2D artists to hand draw over it. And as we said, it does feel like you are watching a comic book come to life. You have the little captions come up, or someone will be typing on a keyboard and it will come up like click, 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 little sound bites like that. It's just so beautifully put together. And I can honestly say I don't think I've seen an animation style like it. When I originally saw the trailer, I compared it to sadly the company's gone bust now, but the Telltale video games, the sort of like choose your own adventure games, very much that hand-drawn artwork, comic booky style.
Like a Dragon's Lair sort of.
Kind of stuff like that. And I mean, there are even moments in this movie where sometimes when you watch an animated movie, not all the time because I'm a huge animation fan, but you are very much aware that you are watching an animated movie. It's maybe more directed for kids, although families can have enjoyment with it. There are moments of drama in this movie, and this movie does get very emotional in some parts, but the characters feel so real that there are moments where Miles Morales is like chatting to his dad or his uncle or something like that. It almost felt like I was watching a live action movie. And there was a moment where the animation kind of transcended a moment where it almost towed the line into live action. I don't know if you had that, or maybe that's just me.
It's absolutely bizarre, but to say the Mary Poppins effect of that live action with, or like a Roger Rabbit sort of thing, where you've got a live action with an animation, and it's bizarre. But you're right. There are times when your eyes are drawn out, and suddenly I'm watching a cartoon still, and it was bizarre. I didn't see it in 3D. I know you can, but I didn't.
I don't even know if my cinema's actually playing it in 3D, which is a shame because I think this would be incredible in 3D.
But there were still moments where, because the way they've animated it, it still looked almost 3D with the way they've done some of the backgrounds, and you're so centered on the character who's on screen. It blurred that background so well. It stood out a mile. It's just absolutely stunning. Some of the artwork, when you push in, it looks like a comic book. You can get the little dots of colored ink as if that's how they colorized the page. I absolutely adored this. It was I say there's never been a comic book movie that's pulled off looking like a comic book movie like this did.
And I think it's definitely best suited to an animated movie because there are a lot of like the beginning of this movie. And I will say this. I think that the animation style and the frenetic pace of the movie does take a little bit of getting used to. At the beginning, it is so kind of the Lego movie was the same as well, where the jokes are coming so fast. The visuals and the animation are absolutely dazzling and stunning, but it almost does get to a stage where it's almost seizure inducing a little bit. And even I was kind of sitting back like, Jesus Christ, this movie needs to slow down. Like I'm struggling to keep up with it. But that gets to a point where you just kind of get swept up into that style and you're along for the ride of the movie. And I'm glad that it does keep up that pace throughout the movie. And it does, when it does slow down and it does the emotional moments, it absolutely hits those as well. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait to buy this movie when it comes out on Blu-ray or 4K or whatever, and just see those behind the scenes, that footage to see how they made this a reality. I was reading a little bit and they said that when they were first trying to construct the animation and everything like that, and it was still very much in the development stage, it took them about a year to produce 10 seconds of footage. Which is absolutely mental. I think they originally started with about 60 animators, and then they realized we're not going to get this movie out with just 60, and then the team grew as the film went on. But I absolutely think that animation was the best way to go with this movie. Not to say that I don't think you couldn't do this in a live action environment, but there's just so much more freedom and style that you can bring into with an animated film that I think just goes absolutely hand in hand with the Spider-Man character. And, the swinging and the whole like into the Spider-Verse thing, I think it's very much better suited with animation.
I think had you tried to do it live action, it would have looked more like an animated film because there's so much they would have had to have done in computer graphics. It just would make no sense. But as an animation, it stands out as a superb animation where I think it might have cheapened it to be a live action to then have so much CG in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have gone the other way. It would be like, not really. It's not for me. It's more like a cartoon. Because it's aimed that way and because it's produced that way, it's outstanding. And
as a Spider-Man fan, as I said, I haven't read a lot of the things, but you do pick up a lot of the things in the movie. There are references to previous Spider-Man films, comic books. Like if you are a huge Spider-Man fan, like this is going to be like your wet dream essentially, because it's like it's an absolute love letter and tribute to the Spider-Man character and indeed all the other incarnations that have come after it. And yeah, also, if you go and see this movie, and I'm not going to give it away now, we'll probably get into it in spoilers, please stay for the credits. Yes, there is a mid-credit scene and there is an end-credit scene. Well, actually, no, is there a mid-credit scene? I can't remember. I think there is.
It's a mid-credits, yeah.
Yeah, but the post-credit scene might be one of the best I've ever seen in a comic book movie. Yeah, I had an absolute blast with this movie. I really hope a lot of people go and see this movie and support this movie. It's done on a budget of 90 million, and so far it's made just under 60. It is a very competitive month, though, for films. It'd be interesting to see how this would have done if they'd have brought it out. I think it was originally intended to come out July of this year, so the summer months. Maybe it would have done better there. I don't know, but I mean, we've had the likes of Bumblebee, we've got Mary Poppins, we've got Aquaman, Wreck-It Ralph 2. It's a very, very packed month for films, so I think that might have taken some of the attention away. It's doing very well critically, though. It's on 97%. I believe it was on 100% for a while, and then one guy gave a negative review on it. I will find that guy, and I will hunt him down and make him suffer. But
this term, you mean the critics' review, sometimes you look at them and go, okay, it's at 90-odd%, it's not good. And you see this one, and you're right, absolutely go out and see this movie. It's well worth your time, and it's not a massively long film. It's I think it's just over 2 hours.
Just under 2 hours, 117 minutes.
So, and it's worth it. It goes through at such a pace you would never think you've sat and watched a nearly 2 hour movie. It flies through. So there are, like you said, there's the quiet moments when it gets quite emotional, but they aren't massively long, and the rest of it is fly by the seat of your pants and just sit back and take in this spectacle.
Yeah, and so much so that I really hope this wins the Oscar for Best animated feature this year. If you're looking at animated films that come, it hasn't been a great year for animated films. I think Wreck-It Ralph 2's definitely got a shot of being nominated there. It's Disney, you know, or Pixar. They always get nominated. But I think in terms of animation, writing, drama, and just love for the source material, I think this absolutely deserves to win the Oscar. And I really hope it does. So it'll be very interesting to see how this movie does next year when we get to it.
Yeah.
We just had a comment from JX Editor. He's put, you think there's any usable Spider-Man 3 footage here? Well, he is a fan editor. Like, obviously, like he produces newly crafted things. I don't know. Would you say there is? It's
a tough one. There's literally a take from. I mean, we can talk about this. We're not in spoilers, but there is a take where they're talking about his backstory and he's telling the story of who he is, and there is literally a direct lift from Spider-Man 3.
Yeah,
where instead of you see Tobey Maguire doing the dance down the street in his emo outfit, Spider-Man does exactly the same moves outside the restaurant and down the street, and they just stop and go, we don't talk about that, and move on. It's you might be able to take some of maybe like there's a lot of in the shadows fighting. If you're gonna see that like behind when he's fighting with characters we'll get into later, but you see a lot of it in shadow, in just silhouette. So you might be able to take some of those because there's some really, it's gorgeous and it will stand up against the CG level of Spider-Man 3, I believe, will stand quite well against them. So there might be some takes from it, but I would definitely say it's worthwhile having a look through it and see what you could pull. I think you'll definitely get something.
I think especially as well, because I know Spider-Man, the first two Sam Raimi films end with a swing away and like absolute Spider-Man hype, whereas Spider-Man 3 ended very low-key. And in hindsight, it's actually quite a poignant ending to cap off the trilogy, where it's literally just Peter Parker showing up to the jazz club and, beginning to dance with Mary Jane. They're going to repair their relationship. But if you wanted to produce like a final swing away, there is so much swing away material in this movie. So absolutely go nuts with it, man. But as you said, we'll move into spoilers now. And I don't really want to talk about loads about the spoilers because I think just go and see this movie and just be surprised by all the stuff. But as you said, like the opener, it's literally like the first couple of minutes of the movie where you do get those Sam Raimi references. And sometimes when I'm hyped for a movie, I'll sit down and the first 10 minutes will go by and I'll be like, I'm not sure if I'm feeling this movie. I haven't been won over by this movie yet. I hope it gets better. And sometimes films do, and sometimes they don't. Within the first 1 or 2 minutes, I was like, we're in safe hands with this movie. Yeah. I knew exactly from the get-go that I was going to love this movie, what it was doing with the humor and references like that. And they don't like bash you over the head with them as well. Like, say if you hadn't seen the Sam Raimi trilogy, you could easily still watch this and still understand all the humor and everything like that. But I think if you are familiar with the greater Spider-Man lore, you're going to get so much more out of this movie.
Well, let's say, each kind of Spider-Man takes you through the backstory of how they became Spider-Man. It gets shorter and shorter with each Spider-Man you see, but the first Spider-Man that we get, which is Peter Parker, which is, from what I get, this is our Peter Parker that we have in our universe.
Yes.
From the take I took. And you get to see clips from, not clips exactly from the Sam Raimi films, but you see him doing the train hold-up, but in full Spider-Man garb. And you get to see the car coming through the window of the restaurant that he stops. And I say the dancing in the street as well. So you do get bits of each of those films. So it's kind of that, although they don't reference that I kind of took it from that we're watching the same character, which was nice.
Yeah. And I know originally, I don't know if they were talking about doing it or if there was some kind of petition. I think they were in two minds whether to do it or not. But that Peter Parker is meant to be Spider-Man at the top of his game. They were originally going to get Tobey Maguire to do the voice of him. And, they got Chris Pine to do the voice and he does a fine voice. But I think if they'd have got Tobey Maguire to do it, it would have almost been like that spiritual successor to Sam Raimi Trilogy. It would have almost been like the unofficial Spider-Man 4. And especially because, we are very much into the spoilers now. Like, he gets taken out by Kingpin. Like, he is dead. There is no coming back. Peter Parker dies in the main universe of Spider-Man. He is killed.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been a nice passing of the torch to Miles Morales, even if they've, obviously, with Sam Raimi's being in live action, even if you kind of hinted to that character or made him that Tobey Maguire character, almost passing the torch to Miles Morales in the animated world. I don't know. I think that would have had a lot more emotional resonance to it a little bit.
I would have adored to have seen that. Oh,
hello? Are we good?
Oh, hang on, my friend. If you can talk for a second, I'm just...
Yes, that's
Sorry
fine.
about that. Sorry, my computer went into shutdown mode for some reason.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Sorry, guys. So yes, sorry, as I was saying, it would have been the right take to have him play that role, even just for a few spoken lines, which is because Chris Pine is in there and he's great. He doesn't get many lines, but he's Chris Pine. He sounds awesome. If that had been Tobey Maguire, rounding off his story, the character dying, would have been a very much more emotional pull at the story point, even though it was already didn't quite see it coming.
Yeah.
And then this mass that is Kingpin in this movie, which is just huge.
Freakishly huge in this movie. Very much stylized, but he does kind of look like Humpty Dumpty. As we said, like he's like a head and then just a sphere, and that's all you see.
Like the Alice in Wonderland take that Disney did with the Tweedledee and Tweedledee.
Yes, yeah.
But much, much bigger. And he literally just, Spider-Man is trapped under some rocks, and he just punches them to death.
Yeah, just one. It's like two, bam, straight. That's it.
It's nuts.
What was nuts as well, and I think this is in the Ultimate Spider-Man universe, but it's still kind of strange when I'm used to seeing the Green Goblin that I know. The Green Goblin in this is very different. This isn't your Norman Osborn. It's still Norman Osborn, but it's not anyone flying around on a glider. It's not your Willem Dafoe. It's not the purple hat-wearing guy. This is like a building-sized Gorgon that's fighting Spider-Man. And he still calls him Norman, so I'm like, clearly I've missed something here in the comic books where there's been this transition between Green Goblins.
To that. He is just a massive, massive green lizardy, powerhouse.
Yeah.
Each character he seems to fight is a slight incarnation. Now, I say I'm not familiar with the comic books either, so whether this is what it is like now, it's quite a big departure from what you and I know. So it was quite hard to take at first, but it just shows the size of these villains that the Spider-Man's been fighting all this time. And just that moment, Miles Morales watching his hero Spider-Man, and Spider-Man senses that Miles Morales has the same powers as him, and then for him to get wiped out, it's just like, right, where do we go?
And I will say with this movie as well, like the fight scenes are fantastic, like visually stunning, and as I said, like almost borderline seizure-inducing, especially when we get to the very ending where they're trying to shut down the giant doomsday machine, essentially. And I think if the movie had have just focused solely on that, it would have been a great visual experience. It would have, it would have still been this prolific animated movie. But I think inherently, and I think this is credit to Phil Lord as well in terms of the writing, because he did this with Lego Movie. He always manages to bring that heart into it. You can still have those very rapid jokes, very fast-paced movie, but inherently what matters are the characters and the drama behind the characters and the emotion as well. And for me, like at the core of this movie was Miles Morales trying to find his place, not just trying to be, a new Spider-Man essentially and live up to the legacy of all the other ones, but also in terms of his own life and his fairly strained relationship with his dad and his relationship with his uncle as well. And I guess we should talk about the uncle character now. Very, very likable character from the off. You immediately believe that these, they have this, close family relationship with each other. Although they don't see each other very often, Miles definitely connects more with his uncle, more so than his dad. Voiced brilliantly by Mahershala Ali as well. And I didn't actually know this. Like, I'm going through the cast list now, and so many of these voices I didn't realize were in the movie. You've got like Liev Schreiber did the voice of Kingpin. Like, I didn't know that until now reading this cast list. But there is a twist in the movie regarding the uncle, which honestly, like, I probably should have seen come in, but I didn't. And I mean, I don't know about the character or like the character's real name or everything like that. So if you're a comic book fan, you probably know that that's coming. But I mean, we're in spoilers now. His uncle's the Prowler.
Yeah.
And the Prowler is a terrifying character in this movie. There are some scenes like where he's like stalking like Miles around an apartment. And in terms of the soundtrack, I'm a very big fan of, in terms of soundtracks, having a leitmotif, having a piece of music or a sound that ties directly to that character. And there's a sound bite that keeps playing every time the Prowler's on screen, which sounds like this sort of metallic growl almost, like this really discordant alien sound. And it was so chilling. And like the moments where Prowler's on screen and how fast he moves and how agile he is, and the fact that it almost seems like he can teleport between places, he could be anywhere. I thought I've never seen the Prowler. Well, he's never been on screen before. I think he may have been in like the animated show, perhaps.
Only thing we've seen live action is Donald Glover played that uncle character in Spider-Man: Homecoming. That's who Donald Glover's supposed to be. So that's his uncle. That's the uncle.
Oh, okay.
Which is why Donald Glover played it, so he could be some part of Miles Morales' family. That's when he says his grandson. He's trying to keep all this stuff away. His nephew. So that's the only time live on screen we've seen. Might have been the animated stuff, like in the latest stuff. I don't know, like the Spider-Man Unlimited and things like that. No idea. But you're right. It was really, really creepy, but so well played. And you're right. When he was chasing him down, and just because the trains were coming through, he was going straight to those trains. Like there was nothing about them, and he had these claws, and just so menacing a character. It was quite a shame to lose him further down the line of the story.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this was like a running theme. There's that moment where they all talk about the people they've lost, whether it's another version of an uncle or they've all befallen like some kind of tragedy in their lives, essentially. And you're just waiting for that moment to happen with Miles. And when it happens, it feels very real. And those are the moments that I'm talking about where it almost towed the line into live action for me, where you do have those very real moments. Voiced brilliantly as well, to the point where I thought they'd done some kind of motion capture work on this movie. They probably didn't. It probably was all, CGI rendering and everything like that. But yeah, man, like I was getting, when the uncle like died, like I was getting misty at that point. And it's so great that an animated movie, and in terms of the writing, can still do that. There's probably more emotional resonance in this movie, this animated Spider-Man movie, in at least the last few Spider-Man movies for me.
Oh, easily. Yeah, absolutely. There's no hot Aunt May in this one. However, Aunt May is a badass.
Yeah, I likened it to Alfred from Batman. Like, there's a spider cave. He's got like all the cars in there, all the tech. Yeah, very different. And that goes with a lot of the characters, like not only Green Goblin, but a lot of the characters that I'm already familiar with do have a very different take on this. And because of my limited knowledge of the comic books, I don't know if there has been an Aunt May that has been, this kind of incarnation where she's very much like the Alfred kind of character sitting behind the spider computer, I guess. Is that what we're calling it?
Of course it is.
But maybe that is in the comics. That's not the Aunt May that I'm used to. I'm used to the old, good-hearted, gentle, elderly woman Aunt May. And then now I guess hot Teresa May, Aunt May from Homecoming, which I'm also cool with for very different reasons.
You and me both, sir. You and me both.
Yes. Even things like Olivia Octavius, again, a plot twist that I didn't know was going to happen. But it's great. You've got so many different villains in the movie. You've got Prowler, you've got Kingpin, Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, essentially. But although there's like a wealth of villains in the movie, it didn't feel unfocused. It all felt still very tightly knitted together. You've got such a great ensemble cast as well, which must be very difficult as a writer. How much attention do I give to this character and this character, essentially? And as we said with the likes of Spider-Man Noir, we could have gone for more. But I think the amount that we get still makes him very memorable. And the fact that we want more is testament to how much we like that character. And I think he's still fantastic in his own right. I don't really know if I have anything else to say about this movie. I will say that I was grateful that they didn't go full-blown Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy love relationship. I think they could have easily have done that. And it is still a part and it's hinted. But I think Sony are aiming to get more sequels out of this thing. Hopefully. I mean, I would love to see more of these things. Whether it would still quite capture the magic of this one, because it would be the same animation style, and because we've already seen it in this one, it wouldn't really be doing anything different in that regard. But I just want to see these characters back.
That's the best thing I think it leaves you with. It leaves you a legacy of wanting to see these characters again. A lot of films, you don't walk out of them thinking, oh, I'd actually really like to go back and visit that world again, or those characters. Certainly, at least Miles and Gwen, I think, would certainly be probably teamed up easily in another movie. Maybe not Spider-Ham so much, although it was excellent when he left with "That's all, folks," and the line that was then played after. Can he say that legally?
And that's now the second Phil Lord, Chris Miller movie. Like with the Lego movie, when the Millennium Falcon showed up, I was like, what did they swing with Disney to get this in the movie with the Star Wars theme and everything? So they always throw me for a loop at least once. And that was a nice reference as well to the Looney Tunes, which I thought was great.
It was just so well played. And I mean, the end scene, like Chris said, it is seizure inducing, the animation style, because the characters are basically glitching in and out of their universes, like Vanellope in the first Wreck-It Ralph movie. She glitches all the time. Very much that sort of same thing, that if they stay in this universe, they're going to die. So that style as well, when they're changing, and it's just excellent. And this big final battle with Kingpin is so in your face and loud and action everywhere and trains flying at you, and
even Kingpin has a motivation for doing what he's doing.
Yeah,
which kind of unfolds throughout the movie. And some people might say that it's not developed perhaps as much as it could. I think it's fine for what it is. If they'd have shifted the focus to Kingpin and spend more time with him, then you're already trying to do so much with the movie. And I think they kept the focus where it needed to be. But on like a surface level, like, he has a motivation. You understand why he's doing what he's doing.
I've found that it really helped that I've watched, if you've seen the Daredevil Netflix series as well, you know about his relationship with Vanessa, which it had to been just, he was trying to get his family back and they're trying to come through. As soon as he said Vanessa when she's trying to get through, I was like, oh, it's Vanessa. And that, just seeing that and linking those two worlds, even though they're not, but in my head, linking that made me feel for that character a bit more. And you're right, the motivation then spoke volumes to me.
Yeah, it is very much a spiritual successor to many things, not just the Sam Raimi, but pretty much every incarnation of Spider-Man, or the side characters and everything like that. And that's why I absolutely loved it. Now, if I'm going to rank this with other Spider-Man movies, and I've been mulling this over in my head, and I probably need to see this movie a second time just to get it completely cemented. Also, the fact I've had well over 10 years now with the Sam Raimi trilogy and everything, so it is very much, a staple of who I am and the movies that I love. I think I'd still, out of pure nostalgia, I think I'd still rank Spider-Man 1 and 2 above this one. Objectively, this is a better movie. This is such a better movie than Spider-Man 3. But I still have that enjoyment with Spider-Man 3, so I would probably have the Sam Raimi trilogy, and this is very close. It's better than Spider-Man 3, but, what can I say? It's got J.K. Simmons in it. Like, I can't... Just for that alone, I have to rank this.
Just for that, you can't drop it. And I get that.
But, for me, this is way, way above either of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and indeed Homecoming. I wasn't a big fan of Homecoming, and Tom Holland isn't my Spider-Man. I'll just say that. I liked him in Civil War, but I felt so much that Homecoming was geared towards tying it into the Avengers and an Iron Man movie that it kind of...
It was a Spider-Man.
This is a Spider-Man movie. You watch this, he is front and center, he is the focus, whereas... I think Homecoming kind of was trying to dip its toe in a lot of different pools, essentially, and suffered because of that. But we need to talk about the end credit scene very, very briefly. I will say there is a beautiful dedication in memoriam to Stan Lee. Stan Lee does cameo in the movie, which that almost got me.
It's tear-inducing. You're right. It comes on screen as soon as you see him, and it's just old Stan Lee, and he's selling Spider-Man merchandise and not taking any refunds. What if it doesn't? It'll grow into you. Everyone fits into it. It'll grow. It's no refunds. It was wonderful to see him. So obviously, I don't know if he's recording for Avengers.
I think they've said that he's going to have cameo in Captain Marvel, and Endgame is going to be the last cameo that he's in.
So yeah, it was still a really poignant just to see him. It was a really nice move to actually put him as not just a voice.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a True Believers at the beginning, him narrating it, but it was lovely to see Stan on there. And yeah, so then we moved to the end credits, and
oh boy.
We jumped to Spider-Man 2099, voiced by the one and only Oscar Isaac.
Was it Oscar? I didn't know who did the... Yeah.
Oscar Isaac, there you go.
This is what I mean. I'm going to have to study this cast list after we finish this stream, because there are so many names on here I didn't even realize were in the movie. But yeah, so what immediately starts as, they're sequel baiting. It's going to be, Spider-Man of the future in the next film. Immediately segues into one of the best homages and best jokes that I've ever seen in a post-credit scene. We go back to 60s, I think it was, wasn't it?
67, I think 67, 68 for the original Spider-Man animated series.
Yeah, and, it plays on the memes that we've seen in the internet age being what it is with memes, and it just goes full-blown 60s Spider-Man, and it's fantastic. And, I guess they should have done something like that. I think they mentioned that, we had a great theme song, and they talked about the old one, and you expect that's going to be the only reference there. But no, they go completely love letter to that 60s and poke fun at it as well. Poking, no pun intended.
They're pointing at you, you're pointing at me, but you're pointing at me. Just like 30 seconds of that, it was absolute bliss.
Yeah, it was perfect and completely rounded off the movie to the point where if they don't get a sequel, you know, I will be upset because I do want to see these characters, but there's so much packed into this one movie that I don't know if you could capture lightning in a bottle twice with a sequel.
Be tough. Be really tough.
Whereas if you just have this be your standalone animated Spider-Man that's a love letter to everything that's come before, I'm fine with that. It's good. It's self-contained enough where it does have some threads that could lead into a sequel, but it also feels conclusive in its own right where they could end it with this one. But yeah, I think I've pretty much said everything I can on this movie. If I'm going to give my recommendation, absolutely. If I'm going to give a percentage, it's in the high 90s. Go and see this movie. It's without a doubt one of the best comic book movies of the year. Completely revolutionary in terms of animation. I really can honestly say, hand on heart, I haven't seen anything quite like it. And I don't know if I ever will after this. And I think if, you know, more comic book movies do try and chase after this animation style, I think that's going to take away from the magic of this one. But this is always going to be the movie that did it first. This has been a fantastic year for Spider-Man when I think about it. I mean, we've had this movie, which is fantastic and going very well critically. We've had the hugely successful PlayStation 4 game, which, you know, completely captured the magic for Spider-Man again. And also Tom Holland's Spider-Man died in Infinity War. So that's also a positive. So yeah, it's
nice
been a good year. It's been a good
nice
2018. Yeah. But yeah, so what would your recommendation be? And we'll round off after that.
Yeah, I can't recommend this highly enough. In terms of Spider-Man movie, I would put this Spider-Man 1 from the Sam Raimi films at the top. This would come for me literally ranked. So Spider-Man 2, sorry, at the top, followed by this. I was blown away by it. It's exceptional. It's a well-told story. There's no dead moments. There's nothing that you think, I could have done that better. I don't think it could have been. It's a high bar for not only a Spider-Man movie, a comic book movie, and I would put this over probably a number of the Marvel films as well in the MCU. Yeah. I would really rank it so highly. It's excellent. Yeah, you rank in the 90%. I would certainly put in there as well. It blew me away. I'm really impressed by it.
Absolutely. Please go and support this movie. As I said, it's on 60 million. It was done on a budget of 90. I want this movie to make its money back. I want it to make a profit. Like I not just because I want a sequel. I just want everyone who worked on this movie to get the support they need. You know, so please go and see this movie, even though, as I said, it's a very packed month. And that's a great segue because we will be having many more movie reviews. I have already seen Wreck-It Ralph 2. I had a double cinema day with this movie. I had an animation day. I think I definitely saw the best animated movie first with this one before Wreck-It Ralph 2. I'm just waiting for George's internet to get back on its feet, and then we'll have a Wreck-It Ralph 2 review. At some point this weekend, I will be having to see Aquaman, unfortunately. I'm going to try and psych myself up and travel into town and go and see that movie. I don't want to judge it too harshly before I've seen it, but, you know, the DC fanboys being what they are, I don't care. And I also need to see Bumblebee, which I'm actually very much looking forward to as a G1 fan. Yes. So, and then I think Mary Poppins comes out. Is that next week? Is it the week after Christmas or...
It's either like Boxing Day or literally the day before Christmas. It's really close to Christmas. I couldn't do the actual day, but it looks really good.
So I will be spending Christmas at my second home, which is my local cinema. So if you've just discovered our video through this review, please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon as well to stay updated with all of our content, whether it be movie reviews like this, trailer reactions from myself, or any of our other original shows. We are hoping to get on another Battle of the Brackets episode very soon. It's difficult to get all of our schedules in line now with life getting in the way, essentially. But hopefully we can get something sorted around the Christmas period, and we've got a lot of ideas of future shows we want to do for that. I just want to say a big thank you to you, Dave, for jumping on with me. I really do appreciate it. It's great to have you back on the channel.
Very welcome.
And yeah, before we round off, if you want to big up any of your own YouTube channel or any of the other shows you're working on.
Yes, so you can catch me over on YouTube on The Life of Brian, and that is me doing sort of model builds. Just finished building the R2-D2 from D'Agostini, and I also have a fortnightly podcast with George sometimes, because he's moved to London and now he's a big shot and doesn't talk to us anymore. So sometimes George will appear, but mostly me and Phil doing ones with the Force of Star Wars podcast every fortnight.
Awesome, and we'll leave links to those in the description down below. Go to your channel, Dave. Give him a subscribe. He's hitting, you know, some great numbers in terms of his subscribers now. Get those numbers up there, and yeah, hopefully, good to have you back on another review in the future sometime. What that movie will be, I don't know, but we'll get you back on definitely. And yeah, until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.